Anoka is a simple high school student and feels far from being cool, rich, or smart. Because of that, he always thinks it's impossible for anyone to like him. His life goes on just like that, monotonous, without any significant surprises. However, suddenly, everything changes when he gets involved in mysterious things like magic and monsters. Unexpectedly, Anoka gets a rare chance to get close to Ayaka, the most popular girl in school, who also happens to be the principal's daughter. A fantasy he never imagined now seems to be inching closer to reality. Although they sit next to each other in class and often take the same bus, Anoka and Ayaka hardly ever speak. It's as if they live in two different worlds. Ayaka stands out so much, while Anoka often feels nearly invisible. One day, when Anoka accidentally drops his eraser, Ayaka kindly picks it up. But who would have thought that Ayaka's kindness would spark the anger of her fans? They drag Anoka out of the classroom, shove him, and warn him not to accept Ayaka's kindness again. After that incident, Anoka heads to the teacher's office to complete his assignment. However, another girl approaches him and takes the paper from his hand. It turns out she's a member of Ayaka's fan group, wanting to ensure that Anoka doesn't get close to Ayaka anymore. Although this story seems like the beginning of a school romance, the reality is different. Anoka's school days are more like the journey of a supporting character in Ayaka's story, while he continues to try to find his own place amidst the chaos of school life that never fully favors him. One day after class, Anoka stepped outside to throw out some trash, lost in thought about the meaning of his life. Among the pile of garbage, he noticed a strange and slightly creepy rabbit toy. Curious, he approached the toy and discovered a note inside. Its contents were odd, a prediction of sunny weather but with a warning that some buildings at school might collapse. At first, Anoka thought it was just a cheap joke, but not long after, he was shocked to see a large shadow appear near the clock tower, which suddenly did collapse. At that moment, Anoka wondered if this was a sign he was about to be transported to another world. However, just as the building seemed to be falling directly above him, Anoka found himself in Ayaka's arms, who somehow was dressed in a witch's costume. Ayaka urgently warned him not to move, as they were both flying on a broom, hovering in midair. From afar, Anoka saw a girl with cat ears watching them. She looked suspicious, as if Ayaka were a dangerous witch. Without hesitation, the girl summoned two giant rabbit toy soldiers to attack them. Ayaka quickly tossed Anoka into the air to avoid the attack, cast a fire spell that immediately burned the toy soldiers, and then gracefully caught Anoka again. However, the rabbit toy soldiers rose again, attacking with swords. Ayaka didn't stay idle and fired a fireball, then skillfully fought using her broom and magic. While Ayaka told Anoka to stay close, he instead started walking away. He saw the girl with cat ears waving from behind a building, signaling for him to come to her for safety. Thinking she was Ayaka's friend, he immediately ran toward her. Unfortunately, Anoka ended up trapped in the middle of the toy soldier army. They quickly captured him, and one soldier with a large axe approached, ready to strike. In that moment, he felt like a useless side character. But before it was too late, Ayaka arrived, unleashing a fiery attack that burned the toy soldiers and saved him, like a true hero. Still convinced that all of this is just a dream, Anoka tries to act cool, telling Ayaka that she looks beautiful even in his dream. Ayaka assures him that she's here to protect him. When Anoka, confused, asks her why, she simply replies, "Because I am your servant." This revelation leaves Anoka bewildered, but Ayaka teases him, affirming that they are in a world that only recognizes two genders. While trying to protect Anoka, Ayaka seems unaware that part of her hair is burning. Anoka feels guilty, thinking that all of this is his fault. He believes he might just be a burden to her. However, in the midst of his confusion, he realizes that, without noticing, he's starting to admire Ayaka. As Anoka ponders all of this, one of the toy soldiers rises again and attacks Ayaka from behind. Reflexively, Anoka jumps in front of her, hoping to look cool. But in reality, he ends up looking a bit silly and gets thrown against the wall. Even so, to Anoka, this moment feels like an unforgettable adventure that makes him feel a bit more alive. However, before he can say a word, he faints. Ayaka sees him injured and approaches, giving him a gentle, caring hug. In her heart, she understands why her hero suddenly collapsed. Ayaka is clearly angry seeing him hurt. She regrets not completely incinerating the toy soldiers from the start. With firm resolve, Ayaka stands up, chanting her ultimate spell, a million clovers, and with a massive burst of fire, all the enemies are instantly destroyed. As evening arrives, Anoka wakes up in Ayaka's private room at school. Ayaka calms him, assuring him that this isn't a dream and promises to explain everything another time. They walk home together, and Ayaka says that, for now, all he needs to know is that she has a duty to protect him because he is her master. Confused, Anoka just walks beside her in silence, without saying much. A few days after that incident, everything seemed to return to normal. However, something felt different. Anoka began to draw unwanted attention from others. This change became more evident when Ayaka confidently sat next to him on the bus to school. As they walked to class, Anoka could feel sharp glares from some students, making him worry about his safety if he continued to stay close to Ayaka. To avoid trouble, Anoka pretended to have a stomach ache and hurried out, but he ended up getting caught by a group of bullies. They grabbed his shirt collar, reminding him to know his place and preparing to rough him up, but Ayaka arrived just in time. Casually, Ayaka took Anoka's tie, made a ribbon out of it, and threatened to burn anyone who dared to harm him again. During lunch, Ayaka sat next to Anoka, accompanied by some girls from her fan club. Proudly, Ayaka fed Anoka with her own hand, saying that she had prepared the food herself. While he felt happy with the special attention, Anoka still felt uncomfortable sitting among the other girls who were glaring at him with unfriendly eyes. Feeling unwelcome, Anoka eventually stood up and said he would eat alone. He quickly left to escape the tense atmosphere. However, seeing Anoka's actions, Ayaka immediately got angry and set all the other girls' lunches on fire. Meanwhile, Anoka felt guilty for having acted a bit rude to her. He wandered through the yard where the building had once collapsed, noticing that everything looked back to normal, as if no damage had ever occurred. Just as he was about to turn around, the cat-haired girl appeared beside him. She remarked that the collapsed building was only an illusion and hinted that Anoka was nothing but a useless person. Suddenly, the girl approached him while transforming into a full witch with her gear, introducing herself as Tampopo from the witch's tower. Tampopo declared her intent to kidnap Anoka and summoned her toy soldier troops. But in that critical moment, Ayaka appeared, stopping Tampopo's plan. Tampopo had been waiting for Ayaka and quickly ordered her toy soldiers to attack them. This time, there were far more soldiers, attacking Ayaka from all directions with spears and swords. Amid the chaos, Anoka opened his eyes and saw Ayaka shielding him with her injured body. In awe, Anoka asked if Ayaka was alright, unable to believe how she was still holding on. Feeling weak and guilty, Anoka expressed his sorrow and promised to always trust Ayaka. He suggested calling an ambulance, but Ayaka casually reminded him that she was made of fire and told him to close his eyes. With her magic, Ayaka destroyed the toy soldiers with her fire spell. Then Ayaka approached Tampopo while carrying Anoka like a princess. Firmly, Ayaka threatened Tampopo, saying she would roast the girl's furry behind with her powerful fire spell. Tampopo managed to summon her remaining soldiers for protection and escape, narrowly avoiding getting scorched on her way out. Once the battle was over, Ayaka told Anoka to open his eyes. To his surprise, everything around them was clean and back to normal, with no sign of damage. Finally, they walked home together, ending the long and eventful day. The next morning, 5 new students appeared at school, and it turned out they were Tampopo along with her fellow witches from the witch's tower. A few days passed, and Anoka kept thinking about everything that had happened the day before and why he had become Tampopo and her group's target. One morning, Anoka decided not to give up and planned to keep questioning Ayaka until he got an answer. However, that day Ayaka didn't take the same bus with him, so Anoka arrived at school alone. As he entered the building and walked to class, he was surprised to see Ayaka seemingly involved in a serious conversation with the new students. Confused, Anoka looked at the class board and realized that Ayaka had joined a rather odd club, the Torture Society Club. Instead of being confused about why the school had such a club, Anoka immediately asked Ayaka how and why she was there. Ayaka revealed that she had enchanted Anoka without him realizing it, making him walk toward the club instead of their usual classroom, all so they could meet. Ayaka then turned toward the girls tied up in the room and declared that this was a witch hunt. She added that these witches needed to be removed because they could pose a threat. Seeing the witches struggling for their lives, Anoka asked Ayaka to remove the bindings on their mouths so they could speak. Ayaka eventually agreed. Tampopo, one of the bound witches, immediately said they were after Anoka because of the light within him, causing Anoka to blush, unsure of what she meant. Ayaka calmly reminded him not to trust the enemy's words so easily. At that moment, Tampopo mentioned they still hadn't captured their final member. Then, drops of thick black slime suddenly fell from the ceiling, covering the room and startling Anoka and Ayaka. From within the slime, May, another witch, emerged, arriving to rescue her friends. Quickly, May kidnapped Anoka and took him to the room below, leaving Ayaka to face the other witches. Meanwhile, May looked proud of her success in capturing Anoka. However, May forgot that she was more suited to being a minor comedian than the main antagonist. Ayaka eventually broke through the floor and approached May, who was still holding Anoka as a hostage. May threatened that if Ayaka got any closer, she would let her pet wolf bite Anoka's neck. Instead of being scared, Ayaka kept advancing and attacked May with fire. Anoka fell, and Ayaka was finally able to get him back. Strangely, even though the wolf had briefly bitten Anoka, there was no wound on his neck. Seeing Ayaka, who was injured but remained calm, May finally chose to retreat, leaving Ayaka and Anoka in a silence filled with victory. That afternoon, Anoka opened his eyes in Ayaka's schoolroom. He was surprised to see Ayaka wearing a scarf around her neck despite the scorching heat. Feeling guilty, Ayaka apologized and explained that she only wanted Anoka to live a normal and peaceful life. But with the current situation, it seemed like that would remain a dream unless they did something about it. Ayaka suggested that in order to reclaim that normal life, they would have to take matters into their own hands and defeat the mastermind behind this chaos. The problem was, Ayaka didn't even know who was truly pulling the strings. Listening to Ayaka's explanation, Anoka pondered and felt bad seeing Ayaka hurt. With determination, he asked Ayaka to tell him everything and make him her student. He didn't want Ayaka to fight alone anymore. Elsewhere, Ayaka's mother and the school principal, Kazan, was relaxing at a coffee shop, meeting her old enemy, Crenoir. After 130 years, Crenoir told her that she had found Medusa and her students fighting with her subordinates. Crenoir even teased Kazan to join in the fun. The weekend arrived, and Anoka received a call from Ayaka to meet her outside. Anoka suspected it might be some kind of date, or at least, a moment when Ayaka would reveal everything about the world of witches that she had kept hidden. They decided to head toward the school, but on the way, Ayaka began explaining the world of witches. There were two types of witches, workshop witches and tower witches. Workshop witches were responsible for maintaining peace in the world, setting up workshops in various places to protect people. They stayed there to ensure that magic wasn't misused. On the other hand, tower witches were more selfish, only thinking of their own gain, and often harming others. Ayaka warned that if Anoka fell into their hands, the world would be thrown into chaos, and everyone could be in danger. After chatting, they headed to a shopping center to buy some clothes. While Anoka waited for Ayaka to finish shopping, he noticed a beautiful girl helping a lost child. The girl approached, looked at Anoka while glancing at a note, and suddenly kicked the child like an NPC in a game. She then leaped toward Anoka with a sword, revealing herself as a tower witch. Ayaka quickly arrived to help, setting her opponent ablaze as she leaped forward to protect Anoka. One of the tower witches attacked with an American-style weapon, but Ayaka used a protective cloak to block all the bullets. She then unleashed a fiery gun attack that left her opponents sprawled out. After the fight, they continued their journey toward the school. There, Ayaka took Anoka to the principal's office and introduced him to her mother, Kazan. Kazan seemed annoyed to see Ayaka causing trouble at the shopping center, but she then explained to Anoka that this was simply part of the workshop witch tradition. With a confident smile, Kazan promised to protect Anoka and ensure he was ready for the unpredictable world of magic. The next day, Ayaka invited Anoka out for some training. On their way, they were suddenly confronted by Tanpopo and her rocket team. Ayaka calmly asked if they really thought attacking her was a good idea, given her near-invincible strength. However, Tanpopo seemed determined and charged forward without a plan. Telling Anoka to watch closely, Ayaka easily threw them aside, sending the attackers flying like characters drifting in the air. Unfortunately, Anoka didn't learn much from the encounter. After the incident, they returned to school. When Anoka opened his locker, he found it filled with threatening letters and a rather creepy voodoo doll of himself. Ayaka reassured him, saying it was likely the work of her jealous admirers. Even so, Anoka felt uneasy as they walked home together. After school, Anoka prepared for magic training, but Ayaka suggested they take the bus home and take a break. On the bus, a magical fish suddenly appeared, shimmering in front of them, and on the destination screen, the words "Next magical bus stop" appeared. Anoka laughed, not expecting the trip home to be so entertaining. However, the mood quickly turned tense when they encountered Crenoir. Casually, Crenoir stabbed Anoka in the stomach. Strangely, Anoka felt no pain nor injury. At that moment, Ayaka suddenly felt a sharp pain similar to a stab in her stomach. Crenoir explained that due to their contract, Ayaka automatically received any injuries that were meant for Anoka. In this situation, Crenoir offered Anoka a magical candy that could awaken his powers. With a little tease, Crenoir even stole Anoka's first kiss, triggering a burst of green fire that made Crenoir step back for a moment. Ayaka then transformed into a stronger version of herself, emitting an intense heat aura that instantly overwhelmed Crenoir. In a brief battle, Ayaka managed to defeat Crenoir, who retreated with injuries. After everything ended, Anoka woke up first, finding Ayaka injured but beginning to recover. Carefully, Anoka took Ayaka to the hospital. There, the nurse confirmed that Ayaka was only exhausted and would wake up soon. Anoka felt relieved, realizing their journey would be filled with challenges, yet he was determined to stay by Ayaka's side every step of the way. Back at home, Anoka noticed a wrapped candy in his pocket. It was the magical orb that Crenoir had tried to give him earlier. Without telling Ayaka, Anoka hid it in his drawer, thinking it might be useful someday. He also started rethinking the contract Crenoir mentioned between him and Ayaka, wondering if they might have known each other before meeting at school. The next day, Ayaka rented out the entire gymnasium for their training. Ayaka gave Anoka his own wizard uniform and began explaining its unique features. When Ayaka asked him to try jumping high, Anoka was immediately shocked to feel his body become light, allowing him to jump almost to the gym's roof. As he came down, Ayaka caught him princess style, then asked him to try lifting her in the same way. Surprised, Anoka realized Ayaka also felt very light thanks to the cloak. Next, Ayaka extended her right hand forward, twisting her wrist, and magically a broom materialized in her hand. Ayaka explained that the broom was actually stored in their cloak and could be summoned with a specific motion. Anoka tried to mimic the movement, but the broom didn't appear, leaving him a bit disappointed. At that moment, Ayaka's phone alarm sounded, signaling the end of their training session. Suddenly, several other students entered the gymnasium for their own practice. Anoka began to panic, worried they'd be seen in these strange outfits. However, Ayaka reassured him, explaining that their cloaks had a special power that made them unnoticeable to others. As they walked outside, Ayaka suddenly asked Anoka if he was afraid of heights. Before Anoka could respond, Ayaka lifted him, mounted her broom, and took them soaring high into the sky. Ayaka told Anoka that they would keep practicing flying until he could summon his own broom. She also explained that there were usually patrol witches in the area to ensure safety. After flying for a while, Ayaka even fell asleep briefly before eventually flying them back to the school. On the way, Anoka saw a young child being harassed and robbed. Anoka asked Ayaka to go down and help, but Ayaka only replied that it was the police's job. As witches, their duty was to protect the city from magical threats, not to intervene in ordinary people's affairs. Anoka wasn't satisfied with that explanation. Bravely, he tried to summon his broom and jumped down to rescue the child. After landing safely, Anoka struck the bullies, knocking them down. However, they quickly got back up and began attacking him. Luckily, Ayaka arrived just in time and drove the bullies away with her magic, making them flee.